The Constitution, WWE, Donald Trump, and I'm not a journalist. I'm not a reporter. I have no acting ability, but I'm here on your podcast today. And this is Bruce, the Weathered Soul, on the Weathered Soul podcast, a special edition today because I promised it to you when we were running through Facebook today. And man, I'm telling you what, I don't know what to say. I had so much to say this afternoon, and I tell you what, this thing with Donald Trump really got me into a tizzy, and I don't fly into a tizzy about Donald Trump all that much because I happen to kind of support a lot of things that he does. I'm not a Republican. You already know that. I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a libertarian. But you know what? I kind of swing both ways into the middle. So the one thing that I have a problem with is man, every time we come across the Constitution or an executive order, it really freaking bunches my pants up, and this one thing with Donald Trump and targeting the birthright citizenship with the 14th Amendment, I really have a problem with, and he didn't say it. I mean, he did say it, but I mean, he wouldn't have said anything about it. But the person that interviewed him on the HBO special did ask him. And I'd love to play you the part of the interview, but I can't. But Trump told Axios on HBO that he had run the idea of ending birthright citizenship to his counsel and plans to proceed with a highly controversial move, which certainly will face legal challenges. Of course, it's going to face legal challenges. I mean, just let me get back for a minute, okay? So you got this 14th Amendment, okay, and everybody, I think, has really opened up this 14th Amendment to do all kinds of things that it probably wasn't designed to do. However, being a constitutional type guy and to the letter of the law, I mean, we've set precedences through this. And when you set a precedence, and even though this precedence with birthright only came to fruition as far as illegal aliens are concerned, only started happening in the early 60s and 70s, and as continued on through the decades, and all of a sudden, because Trump sees this caravan coming, and whether or not he saw the caravan coming or not is irregardless. I just don't think that it's, number one, a smart move on his part. With an election coming up, I don't think it moves his base, because his base was not me, but I did support him. But this makes me less support him, and I just really don't know what to do about this. I really don't. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I just don't know what to do. And so we're going to go forward with this, and I'm just going to run through a couple of the questions. It says, it was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment, and guess what? You don't, Trump said, declaring that he could do it by executive order. He's told that very much in dispute. Trump replied, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can just do it with an executive order. I hate executive orders. I think the executive order clause, as far as the rule that the president can use, should only be used in dire circumstances. And I don't think this is a dire circumstance at all. I didn't think when Obama used his executive order to do a couple of the things he did were warranted. And I'd like to save those things for something more, I guess, is what I want to say. However, with this 14th Amendment, I mean, really, I mean, both the left and the right, the conservatives and the liberals have abused this to their advantage and disadvantage. And I mean, if we can use, I'm going to get a little controversial here, but if you can use this as a protection for Roe versus Wade, that's what protects the abortion argument, that a woman can just dictate what she wants to do with a living person in her body. And I'm pro-choice by liberty and my stance in politics, but I'm pro-life in my morals. I don't have to agree with anything that happens, but my liberty stance tells me that I have to do that. And just because something is lawful doesn't mean it's moral. However, the fact still stands that the 14th Amendment is being used by all kinds of things: gay marriage, the abortion debate, and now this birthright clause. And man, I'm telling you. I just don't agree with it. I think it's a political bust for President Trump. I think I hear all my favorite freaking conservative talk show hosts and podcast hosts just supporting this move by Donald Trump, and I don't get it. I don't get it. Dick, what was his name? Dave Horowitz came on. Constitutional expert, selling us that this wasn't the intentions of the 14th Amendment. Well, you know what? So what was the intentions of the First Amendment, and what was the intentions of the Second Amendment, and why do we have to keep going through this every time somebody has a problem with the Constitution? Okay. So we're gonna interpret this time, but we shouldn't interpret the First Amendment, or we shouldn't interpret the Second Amendment about what kind of guns, right? I can remember not too long ago, a couple of months ago, that we were arguing about this very thing about guns. We were arguing about the Second Amendment. We were arguing whether it just covers muskets or does it cover nuclear bombs. I mean, come on, really. Our Constitution was made for a reason. The amendments to this constitutions were passed for a reason. And you can say, yeah, the 14th Amendment was passed with the consideration of making black people who were slaves citizens of the United States because they weren't recognized as citizens of the United States. And later on, it was done for the Indian tribes. You can say that. And you can say it was very well planned and carefully laid out that aliens and people like that weren't given birthrights. But somewhere in the 60s, the precedents got set by the laziness of number one, our Congress, Washington, D.C., bureaucrats and everything else, that they went ahead and they started giving birthrights to people that were here that were undocumented. Well, you know what? The precedents is set. To go back on a precedent that's been so set and so long. I mean, it's been 50 years. I mean, come on, really, it's been 50 years. How can you go back on something? And I think the thing that I fear the most is that as the longer that Trump is in office, the more I see the corruption set in. Now, I have to say, I agree with some of the policies. We're doing great. I think the nation is doing great. Economy-wise, I think it's so-so. But, I mean, I think the overall, what do I want to say? I don't want to say the feel because everything's so divided, but I think he's doing an all right job. Now, he says all kinds of crap, and I think it's abominable about the crap he says, but I don't think he's racist, and I don't think he's anything like that. However, in the same breath, I got to say that if he takes his back and undoes his precedents, what next? Is he going to call it retroactive and go all the way back to the 60s and let us start deporting all these people that were given that birthright? It's not beyond the imagination that it would happen. I mean, but Paul Ryan says it's not going to happen, and Lindsey Graham is the one that's going to introduce the bill into Congress. So I mean, which way is this going to go? I'm really kind of a little concerned about this one. It took the ACA and Obamacare for me to kind of turn my coat on Obama and start doubting him and the way he ran his presidency. And I think this is the point where I'm starting to doubt whether Donald Trump can lead this country in the way that everybody who wants to lead him. And this whole day started out with me thinking about nationalism, and then this came out, and bang, I really have a problem with it. But back to that's what I want to say about Donald Trump. I mean, I could have been a lot more brasher and stuff, but I actually tweeted to Nancy Pelosi and answered one of her tweets and said, "Hey, for once I agree with her." And you know what? I do. Like I said, I've got liberal friends, I've got progressive friends, I've got hardcore Republicans and libertarians just like me. And we all get along, as long as we don't really push politics too much. I mean, sometimes it's hard to talk to each other because of the way things are going, and a lot of times it's easier because we do get along. We have a common thread, and I think everybody does have a common thread. But this I don't think is a common thread. I really wish that I could say that as a conservative leaning libertarian, I can't support this. I don't believe in it. I just don't. And that doesn't mean that I just want every alien to come in here and start dropping babies so they can have birthrights and stuff like that. I mean, I don't want anybody rushing our borders and coming in here and just demanding that they get this right and that right. I'm all for hand ups, but I'm not all for handouts. Okay, so let's get that clear right now. But so that's what I got to say about the Donald Trump thing. But I want to get to the Constitution also, because this Constitution thing, there's a right way and there's a wrong way of treating the Constitution. And let me digress real quick, because I want to say something more about Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump has some intentions of doing things, and I think that he says things to incite thought. I think he does things to incite reaction and emotion, and he does do that. But I think what he's really trying to do, and this ain't going to be good for Congress, but Congress, you need to get your ass in fucking gear. All right? You guys have had decades and decades upon administration, upon power, upon loss of power, upon everything to fix this immigration problem, and you're not doing it. I don't understand why you're not doing it. I don't understand what is holding you back. Is it money in your pocket? Is it corruption? Is it? I don't know what it is, but personally, I want to replace you with somebody who will. And I will try my best every time that the polls come up to replace you somewhere, somehow, with somebody who is going to do something besides doing this thing that you're doing, which is nothing to the American people. We have nothing going on in Congress except for what they line their pockets with. If you got money, you get stuff done in Congress. Well, apparently immigration doesn't have any money, so they don't get any push. Nobody can reach across the aisle or do anything. Nobody can do any of that, and I don't understand what the problem is. So anyway, back to the Constitution. So there's ways to go ahead and change this Constitution. It's called a Constitutional Convention, Convention of States. I think we have somewhere. I think last count was 12. I could be incorrect on that number. But there's a bunch of states that have signed on to have a constitutional or a states convention. And then we can sit down and we can talk about this Constitution. We can go through every amendment in the Constitution, see whether we want to keep it or whether we want to abolish it or whether we want to change it. I mean, that's really the situation that we have right here. Or you can get the Senate to have a 2/3 majority, and then it has to go through, the motions through the Congress, and then you can change it that way, the same way that did Roe versus Wade and such. But there's certain ways that we can do it, and everybody seems to, every president that comes in thinks that they can just change it by will by an executive order. And then Congress sits back, and then they put their tails between their legs because they really don't want to do anything, and the reason why they don't want to do anything is because they got a primary coming up in 2 years. See, something's wrong with America. Something's wrong with Washington, D.C., when our representatives are more worried about getting reelected in 2 years than to do the work of the American people. I don't understand it. I don't know what it's going to take to make a change. I have no idea. All I know is it's got to change, because it's tearing this nation apart, and a nation divided is not going to stand. I mean, I'm a God-fearing man, and whether you're a God-fearing person or not, doesn't matter. A divided nation will not stand. We will either kill each other, or somebody will come in and they will kill us. And that's a fact. Okay, well, that's all I got to say about that. I want to say one more thing about another thing that's been bugging me too, and that's this WWE thing. And there was a report that came out, and I knew it way before Monday, and they, the WWE announced it on Monday that John Cena will not take part in the WWE Crown Jewel event that's on Friday in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. Now, this rumor has been going around for a while, but the actual decision came down last week, and hey, I stand with John Cena, even though John Cena has enough money and all the clout and everything that he needs to do what he needs to do. He's got his own contract with WWE, and he can come and go as he pleases, kind of like Brock Lesnar and some of their other bigger stars. McMahon kind of bends to their wishes, but I can't say. I've got to plead to WWE not to do this, but they've gone by the way that they've had this 20-year relationship with Saudi Arabia. They just did a great big pay-per-view probably 6 months ago. The Royal something, I can't remember what it was, but even though I'm a fan, I don't remember what happened last week because it's the same every week. Anyway, but this WWE thing burns me too, man, because it's always about the money. It's always about the money. So they've got this great big contract and this great big investment that they have in Saudi Arabia, but they can't get over the human rights thing to make the correct decision and the just decision that I think it is. And I think there's a whole lot of people in that WWE locker room that feel the same way, but don't have the guts or don't have the clout with the WWE to be able to sit this one out. But I'll tell you one thing. Number one, I won't be watching it. I'm considering very seriously about pulling my subscription to the WWE Network, and I'm considering actually selling my stock in the company. It's a very well, the stock's doing very well. But it just remains to be seen. I don't know what happened with this Jamal Khashoggi. I have no idea. It's still up in the air. We're getting spotty little, pieces of information left and right. I know it doesn't sound very good. We just get all this conflicting information, but that's just what it is. Is just a great big travesty, and when money takes over and greed takes over human rights, it's a terrible thing. So that's what I wanted to say tonight, and it's a special edition. I know I only went 20 minutes, but I'll have another show for you guys this weekend. And I'm getting all set up. I wish I was a little bit more prepared tonight than I was, but I'm still looking for money. I'm still looking for donations. You can go to my Patreon page, Bruce the Weathered Soul. It'll take you right to my Patreon page, and you can give me $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. If you want to be a part of the advertiser of this show, I've got a $50 and a $100 a month amount that you can donate to, and you can be the brought to you by sponsor here. I would be more than happy to hand that over. And like I said, it takes money to do this. It's a hobby of mine. I want to take it into a business. It's actually a business venture. I will get the money somewhere. Somebody will do it. I'm very disappointed in Facebook. I'm very disappointed in their business model and how they're trying to make me jump through hoops and stuff like that by trying to clear me as not being a Russian bot, and I just don't believe that I'll be going down that way with their business model. You'll probably see me a lot on YouTube. I've been actually posting some of my videos to YouTube, and this one will definitely hit the YouTube also. So for the most part, getting ready to go off into Libsyn and start recording my podcast there. It'll start going over to Google Play and Apple. And so probably within the next couple of weeks, it'll be doing that as soon as I get cleared and they can start doing the streaming through. And I will definitely be starting to use YouTube a lot. And so I will just be reposting through that into Facebook. And that's about as much as I'm going to use Facebook for. I won't be using it for as marketing. It'll just be a little bit slower, and hopefully I get a lot of hits and get a lot of fans, and we'll see where it takes us. But anyway, so this is Bruce the Weather Soul, and you got the Weather Soul podcast brought to you by First Note Productions, and I'm out.